Don DeVivo. I'm the president of DATCO and the chair of the Speaker's Blue Ribbon Panel on Tourism. Our charge has been to come up with a report that essentially talks about where tourism has been in the past probably 20, 25 years in the state, and where it currently is, including sources of revenue and how tourism is promoted. Come up with recommendations as to how tourism should be funded and how the funding should be spent. In Norwalk.
Good afternoon. I'm Tina Tyson. I'm with the Maritime Aquarium at Norwalk.
Do we have an executive director?
Well, Mayor, DATCO and board member of the Garlic Center in Connecticut. Scott Phelps, longtime president of the Greater Hartford Convention and Visitors Bureau, and recently retired from the Connecticut Convention and Tours Bureau.
Ed Dressel with Destinations Unlimited, a group tour operator in Connecticut and former chairman of the National Tour Association.
Sorry. Okay, now you can all hear me. So just a little bit of background. Back in 2012, under Governor Malloy, the statewide marketing fund was allocated $15 million, through which a new brand was developed, which is Connecticut Still Revolutionary. It served to promote both economic development and tourism. We started at $15 million in 2012. Currently in fiscal year 19, we're at 4.1.
Hi, I'm Janet Sarah. I'm the Executive Director for Western Connecticut Convention and Visitors Bureau. I just want to say that I don't think that tourism is working in the state of Connecticut. We are one of the few states without any real consistent publicly funded regional tourism districts. And most other states do have a two-tiered marketing system of regional tourism districts and the state that should be working together. I think that one thing with our brand and with marketing is that we have to go back to the origins of tourism. What is tourism? Basically, it's showing guest hospitality, and we have to be generous hosts. I think as destinations, we have to uncover our area's DNA. We have to learn to communicate an authentic core story of what each area in the state represents. To me, it's about brand, but it's also about product and about creating amazing experiences and communicating them. I think that is the essence of what marketing should be in this, that regional tourism should be more about destination management than anything else.
Bill Hostley, Cultural Resource Development and Marketing consultant involved in preservation of museums for many years. To stick to the topic of marketing, I was involved in the process that came up with Still Revolutionary. And I think most people think it's something like about the American Revolution, but that actually is almost nothing to do with what it was initially about, which is why it's not a great brand. And I think it needs to be rejected and a new concept, a new tagline or something come up with. Just separately, to reiterate Janet Sarah's point, I couldn't agree more that product development strategies is one of the things that is not really been in the mix of things we talk enough about.
Hi, my name is Fran Kafalis, and I'm with the Last Green Valley. We are a national heritage corridor that covers 26 towns in Connecticut from Preston up to the Massachusetts line, and we extend over into Massachusetts. We're the quiet corner of Connecticut, and yet we have an event every October called Walktober that draws more than 80,000 people to the region. We were designated by the state of Connecticut and by the state of Massachusetts to be overseers of a National Heritage Corridor that this year is 25 years old, and it's one of the original 4 ever designated in the country. It's a special area, that northeastern corner of Connecticut, and from a marketing perspective, we often go unnoticed. So many years ago, the organization, the Last Green Valley Incorporated, which is a nonprofit, sort of as a matter of survival, had to start marketing itself. And we do it rather well. We, as I said, get about 80,000 people to come to Walktober. We get another 18,000 people to come to our spring events, even when it's as rainy as last spring. And we actually, in 2018, had over 2.5 million people attend various things in the corridor that we or our partners organized. And we often find that the marketing, the state is doing fairly well with its $4.1 million because it's trying to market in really expensive markets. And we enjoy the marketing campaign as it stands now with those juxtapositions between, the rural and the casinos, or the different marketing campaigns. But, we really feel as though for us as a small nonprofit organization, it is a struggle to get through all the different layers of who's doing what in tourism. Every time we turn around, we don't know if Mr. Dombrovskis has funding. We don't know if the Eastern Connecticut Chamber is trying to do events or to market tourism, and it's a struggle for us. But it's also a struggle because we're different. We are the great outdoors. We're the trophy trout streams, the hiking trails, the rock climbing. We're the bald eagle viewing. Believe it or not, we have great bald eagle viewing. It's not just on the Connecticut River. And so it's a struggle for us to be heard through the din of other things that are happening, especially in Eastern Connecticut. We can't compete with two of the world's largest casinos, or the seaport, or the aquarium. So for us, it's really important that the marketing strategy look at how different each of our Connecticut regions are.
My name is Mike Speciale. I'm retired executive director of the New England Air Museum. But we've got very distinct different kinds of organizations. So we talked about the wine trail. We talked about the great northwest corner of the state and the northeast corner of the state, and they're places to go to. So that's a place. We want to get people to a place. Are we trying to attract just out-of-state people or in-state people? But what happens when somebody goes to visit the Mattituck Museum? Is that a revenue generator or not? Most attractions now, everything's event-driven. So you don't get people just to necessarily go visit something. You have to have events, rather. And I know that all the museums are struggling to come up with different kinds of events each year, whether it's a superhero day or an open cockpit weekend or a tour of the attic to see all the treasures in some historic home. So maybe rather than this generic, broad, undifferentiated advertising, we need to start thinking about all these events and really promote events.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank everybody for coming, and I really appreciate the commission's work. I know this is, how many meetings now? Three, four? Yeah, three. Four. Yeah. Three. So I've obviously talked to staff and gotten the reports back, but I really appreciate all the work that everybody's doing, and I'm glad I saw the pictures from when you were down at the casino and how many people were in the room, and seeing all the people in the room today is really positive.
Just want to thank you publicly for putting this together, because any attention we can bring to tourism is, in my opinion, a good thing.
So what we'd like to talk about today is, and hear your comments and thoughts about this, are some of the segments that were challenged with funding out of whatever the number is. First, of course, you have advertising, whether it's TV, print, out of home, whatever that paid media advertising is, public relations, regional tourism, the line items that are existing now for tourism, arts, culture, and history, international marketing, group marketing, motor coaches, that would come from that. Welcome centers. Someone mentioned welcome centers. It's a hot topic now. What about funding them? Printed publications, roadmaps, brochures, the vacation guide. Are they still relevant? Or are they not relevant, and should we opt for something else? What about redevelopment of the website, or enhancing the website and social media? Challenge grants. Someone else mentioned the incentive of product development, as well as grants for marketing, for special kinds of efforts. Our historical attractions, camping, outdoor recreation, out-of-state advertising or promotion of our state versus in-state conventions and sports attractions.
Without consistent funding, you can't really run a successful marketing program, no matter what brand you have, no matter what tagline that you have. I think that this committee really has the opportunity to redefine what tourism is, what the state is, and what the regions do. I think that we have the opportunity to define tourism not just solely in economic terms. I think that's very wrong to do. I think you have to see how tourism contributes to the resident and to the visitor's well-being and their quality of life. I don't think that we can ever forget that. Is that we need to attract the right kind of visitor to the right destination and at the right time of year by developing niche marketing initiatives. What we should all be promoting is better experiences for our visitors.
I got into museum work and preservation to support my habit as a tourist. I love travel, and we go a lot of places. And when we travel, my wife and I, we always stop at welcome centers to study them and to photograph them and to think about how different states do that assignment that is applies to every state. And what I've observed is a lot of variety. Probably everybody in the room knows this. The Welcome Center in Guilford, Vermont, as you enter Vermont, is brilliant. But that's not the best one I've seen. I've seen a lot of them. And there's stuff going on with technology. There's a Welcome Center in Fultonville, New York, that is so brilliant. It's like paperless. And you think, well, we were talking about visitor guides and brochure racks and all of this. The world is changing, and paper maybe isn't even, and this thing is so creative and clever. And the most amazing thing about it is that it appears to function that doesn't appear to have any personnel. I mean, it's somebody must open it in the morning and close it at night, but when the couple times I've been there, there's been nobody being paid. So in other words, they're low overhead, high technology. So there's just a lot going on with that. I mean, I think everybody understands that the welcome centers in Connecticut are an embarrassment.
What we looked at were the current sources of funding for arts, culture, and tourism, and that's a fund right now that exists. It's called the Tourism Fund. We do propose that should probably be broadened to be called Arts, Culture, and Tourism, because those are collectively the sectors it funds. But right now, the source of the money that goes into that fund is the lodging tax. The lodging tax right now generates about $130 million a year. However, only 10% of that lodging tax goes into the tourism fund. You're currently the highest lodging tax in the union. What we want to do is reallocate the money from the lodging tax and have more of it go into the tourism fund. We're proposing 25%. So the general fund would get the 75%, the tourism fund would get 25%. That would, as expected, that would generate $32 million as a source fund for arts, culture, and tourism. We identified ways to distribute that $32 million across tourism and arts and culture. Allow for the continuation of the line items, the appropriations, sizable amount to statewide tourism marketing, to arts and culture initiatives, whether they be programmatic or performance arts or presenting arts. All of those things could be well funded through this distribution.
Now, when you talk about the budget for the 4.1, your actual budget is 1.9. That's what we had, not 4.1. It's 1.9. So in regards to this, out of the $32 million, tourism would get roughly $19 million. You pay the 13 line items, and it brings it down to 15 and change. Like the Quiet Corner, if they had people in the private sector raise funds to be matched by that fund, would that help the Quiet Corner? I'm sure it would. I mean, I know you guys are on the districts, and everybody's got their own agenda. It's duplication, and we got to stop doing it. And if we have the chambers already in place, they already have the pulse of what's happening in our local economies and what our identity is going to be, That's where the fund should go.
And Airbnb, there is a pot of money there that we really need to make the legislators aware of. With respect to the role of regional or district organizations, depending on what you want to call them, how many we should have. We have 3 now. Should we have less than 3, more than 3? We used to have, 19? 19 on that. If we knew we could get 25%, what would we do with it? Our tourism budget is $4 million. The districts were allocated $1.2 million. The DECD is sitting on that $1.2 million and will not release it to the districts. When the legislature allocates money, is it incumbent on the administration to release that money? Middlesex Chamber is providing all of our office work, accounting executive director. Joanna Bond is our executive director. So the lion's share of the money that we're supposed to get is going out in marketing dollars.
We're out in the trenches and talking with the small museums and so forth that make up the backbone of why Connecticut is the gateway to New England, and everything in New England you can find in Connecticut. The impossible for somebody in Hartford is to go out and have those individual contacts with the bread and butter, if you will, of what makes Connecticut so superior.
Hi, I'm Fran from the Last Green Valley again. 3 is not working, but Eastern Connecticut is a fine example of why it's not working. Stop at the casinos and go south, and that's a district, and however far west you want it to go. And then everything north of that is a completely different world. And I have to share that from north of the casinos, that idea of having the chambers, especially the Eastern Connecticut Chamber of Commerce, run the districts is an unmitigated disaster waiting to happen. They have a lovely tourism video that's out right now, and there's one 5-second photo of north of Norwich. And it's there because they needed a lovely bucolic New England autumnal image. So they came north to get it. It doesn't work. 3 districts don't work. And I know, I should preface all of this by telling you, I have not worked at the Last Green Valley while regional districts have even existed. That they were gone and unfunded before that. But I do know a number of Mr. Dombrowskis, works and his staff from my previous life as a journalist, and they work hard. But there is no way they can know what's going on in all of Eastern Connecticut. We have almost 30 museums in the northeast corner. I can't even remember all of them, and that's my job. So, and we're a different beast. We are the trails and the trout and the small New England, towns and great little restaurants. We're hill towns and mill towns. And we're a different world. We're closer to Litchfield in terms of the kinds of things that you would experience than we are to southeastern Connecticut in any way. So as an organization, we're not really sure how we feel about the tourism districts anymore. We started tourism because the northeastern tourism district ended, and we're still doing it. I'd like to think that if the state were going to send some money my way, I'd know what to do with it in a heartbeat. We're going to have districts. They have to be well defined to the ideas of what is happening in those areas. And they also need to be, if it is a larger district like Eastern Connecticut, whoever's running it has to be clear that they have to spend some money on the entire district.
Organized. My question is, are we talking to anyone out of the state? It is an incredibly small state, but what are the out-of-staters thinking about us, and what do they know about us? So that should also think about, too, is who are we as a state? If we think of ourselves as a whole,
and then we think about what our regions have to offer, and maybe that can give us some sort of guideline as to how things could be broken up. And what is it like for those of us who are in more urban areas? So we want to kind of create that picture of what Connecticut is. And then let's look at all of our amazing assets. And we have amazing assets that are nationally and internationally famous. We may be smaller, but we can go toe to toe in terms of cultural and arts assets to many other places.
Hi, I'm Jennifer LaRue. I'm with the Mark Twain House and thinking about our tourism effort in terms more of like trails. And we've got, for instance, Victorian 19th century resources that could be banded together as a sort of district or a sort of region, but not a geographical one. And
part of the assignment here has to do with understanding the cultural geography of the state. These aren't political borders. They're regions defined by commonalities of experience, and I think you've communicated that beautifully. The other thing, with Harriet Beecher Stowe and just the argument, there are many, and I think what Jennifer referred to, trails, there are many thematic clusters or concepts that are really, really strong here, that we haven't connected the dots and developed the experience around some of those things, whether it's the African American history and freedom trail that is so rich, or the industrial history trail that in the Naugatuck Valley and even here in the Connecticut Valley and certainly in eastern Connecticut. So there are many, it's thematic and geographic, and I would love to see a little subgroup really grapple with that, because I think at the end of the day we could probably come up with 20 just riveting arguments for that would be these little puzzle pieces that you put them together, and that's who we are.
The bottom line is that the lodging money supports the state of Connecticut now, not tourism, because most of it goes to the general fund. It's not going to where it started as a tax. So I really worry about added taxes any place unless it is earmarked 100% with some type of a lockbox. Because we had the rental car tax, and that went really well. All of that money came into tourism, and they were able to use that, and we used a lot of that for the matching grants. Line items. The line items were established by different legislators in different areas. They got some political power, and they put the line items in the budget. But they're coming out of the money for what originally was formed, the lodging tax, where at one time it didn't. So there's a history to this as you go backwards of what happened, because when you're talking about 130 million, whatever it is that comes in, and we only grab a small part of that. And the bottom line is that people have to start recognizing, and our legislators have to take a lead in this, is tourism's a business. They create tax dollars. These people go out there and do a good job. Our museums do a great job. Probably we should get an overlay of the 19 or 21 districts and then show how it went down to 6. And when it was 6, it was broken up pretty good, and then it went down to 3. But the bottom line is that we have to talk to our legislators, and they have to be fair to the tourism industry, and they have to say, okay, back when this tax was formed, what the heck has happened to it? And it should go to support people to come in this state, to stay in this state and spend money. And I really appreciate the speaker, because he stepped up to the plate in this